Hey, welcome into our first edition of our fantasy football roundtable in week 4. We got big 3 of the 4. Unfortunately, Aaron's not here with us today. He's busy with life, such so it could be like that. But I'm here with SC on my which side? This way. There we have this side on the left side, and Jeremy Shulman on the right side. I still can't figure this out. How are you guys doing today? How's your Saturday going?
Good, man. Good. So far, so good. College football is on. We got some good games going on, so never complain. And weather is getting cooler. I know the West Coast or East Coast, excuse me, is getting hit by that hurricane. So shout out people in Florida. Hope you are staying safe. But we're getting to the fall weather. We're starting to see some leaves change colors. It's this is really what the football season is, right? It's kind of like first couple of weeks we're like, is it still football? Now we're getting into some true football where we're gonna see the upper echelon do some great things.
Yeah, it's Saturday, man. Right? It's college football. It's the best. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, Jeremy.
No, and the leaves are changing color, but we're all changing our colors here because some of these guys are not who we thought they were in the first month of the season. I'm a little concerned about some of these guys. Some other guys like your boy Malik Nabers, absolutely going off week after week. So it's time to adjust the ranks, and that's part of what we're going to talk about here.
Yeah, I think with Malik Nabers, it's fair to say he's just the top 3 receiver rest of the season. Like I don't know what else you do with him. I had a fun tweet that caught the ire of both Falcons and Jets fans, and let me tell you, they're not too happy with it how that's going. But sometimes it's life. Sometimes you run into the second coming of Jesus Christ. His name is Malik Nabers. That's how it goes.
Sorry, Jets fans.
Yeah, but I mean, we're 3 weeks into the season, right? So I think we have reached that point in week 4. We kind of get the sticky data from that point on. So it's good to make the adjustments. And I'm the type of player that doesn't want to get caught behind when I'm making adjustments with players. And sometimes we get a little bounce back from like our boy Deon Bay Johnson, who we'll talk about in a little bit, who, he's finally crushing. He's coming back. So that does not look as terrible as that pick did for all of us because we were all very into it.
It really did.
So
for sure.
It's fun. But yeah, let's talk about Malik Nabers. I guess SC, I'll ask you first. What's the most impressive thing to you about Malik Nabers that you have seen so far to start the season?
I mean, not to avoid that question, but I mean, it's like this is what I expected, right? I mean, this is what we saw coming in. I had him as wide receiver 1 coming in, but I mean, I think he's doing everything we saw. People were saying the LSU offense was high powered. It was Jaden Daniels. I mean, I said time and time again, Malik Nabers and Brian Thomas Jr. made Daniels look better than what he was. And I think we're seeing that on a pro level that really last year, Malik Nabers was showing all his pro level abilities. He's a crisp, speedy route runner. He's an aggressive guy that can, have strength and play with physicality to get the ball. And he's a wide receiver 1 and alpha. For the time being in New York, Daniel Jones is not the good quarterback, but he hasn't had an alpha. And that's not saying him. I talk about he's a quarterback that needs a wide receiver to make him look good. And guess what? When Malik Nabers on the field, Daniel Jones looks better. And granted, he still has his mistakes. I'm not saying he's top 10 quarterback now, but at the same time, he looks better when he's throwing the ball to Nabers. I guess I should say, and it's because Nabers makes the impossible possible. So I mean, it's very. I think it's surprising to see where he's at, like the rankings wise. Like like people, jumping up. Some are saying he's the Dynasty 1 now, and that's we may need to pull our reins back a little bit with Jets, but at the same time, I'm not mad at it because yes, man. Imagine if Malik Nabers had Dak Prescott, instead of the thing move. Imagine if he had Jordan Love. I mean, like these top quarterbacks that we talk about. Imagine if he had these guys that can feed the ball, but if they hyperinflate their wide receiver 1, it's just phenomenal. We're seeing that with a mediocre quarterback in Daniel Jones, and I think it's only this like. We're going beyond the sky with him. I mean, we're the fantasy football universe, right? We're going into different galaxies with Nabers on his potential, what he could bring. So, I mean, it's exciting to see we're at ground level right now. Like right now, it feels like it could be his possible floor and wait until he gets a quarterback, and then we're going even further than that.
Yeah, like I think to your point on Daniel Jones, it makes a ton of sense, right? Because he's not the best quarterback in the world, and it's kind of an issue. But on the flip side, he's capable enough to support a wide receiver, which is all you really need for fantasy football. And it's not like and like a flip side with Stafford and Puka if we go back a year ago, because Puka was not as highly thought of, even though he came out with gangbusters. If he was doing what Nabers was doing and he had the draft capital, I think we would have the same discussion about Puka last year too, right? It's just he didn't have the draft capital. So everyone's like, I don't know. He's a day 3 pick. Whereas Nabers, it's like, nah, that guy was top 10 pick. Like, He's doing what we like. I don't know if we expected this because this usage is out of control. It's like historic usage. So I think a little bit much, but yeah, he's literally done everything you could possibly have asked for. And even in the game last night or on Thursday, like Daniel Jones had him for a wide open touchdown. It was short and it basically was deflected by the defenders. Chris could have another touchdown in the game too, right? But Jeremy, I'll flip it to you. For you, kind of like, what's your takeaway with Nabers? What are you doing with him and how are you moving forward with him?
Well, first off, in that game, not that Dallas has a good secondary or anything, but he was absolutely cooking DBs. I mean, there were times when he wasn't open, where Jones was just piping the ball into him because he knew he was going to come down with it. But at the same time, he was wide open, like you mentioned on that play deep down the field. There was a replay of him just running an out that looked phenomenal. It was a beautiful thing. So it's not that we didn't expect this. It's just nice to see it during the third game. How good he was and how good he's been. The other thing that stands out to me is that his ability to earn targets and garner coverage from the defense opens up a lot of stuff underneath for Wan'Dale Robinson. Wan'Dale Robinson is a good talent. He's someone who can kind of get open on his own. He's running those short to intermediate routes, but he should not be earning, I think it was 14 targets, catching 11 for like 70 or 80 yards last night or on Thursday, like you said. So that shouldn't exist, but it does. And imagine if they'd had a Dak or a CJ Stroud or someone, because then you would be able to get Tyrone Tracy regularly involved or Theo Johnson regularly involved, and these tertiary options, and then we'd have a functional offense. Unfortunately, we're talking about the New York Giants, and that's just not the case.
Yeah, I know. Rams House, I see your question. We're going to answer it here in a second, but we're just going to finish up this topic really quick. Yeah, I think with Wan'Dale Robinson, he's what they call a scam cheat code in PPR, because like he runs the stuff that's really easy. It's an easy button. You're not really running big boy NFL routes. You're running this underneath stuff that you just cross across. You sit down. Really easy. Like basically, this is what people hoped Rondale Moore would be. Obviously, he never worked out, but this was kind of the thought process with Rondale Moore, right? You run the underneath easy stuff. Daniel Jones doesn't have to do anything. He just gets you the ball. You get a few back, and you move on your play, right? So, interestingly enough, the Giants don't have enough good pieces. And this is flipped to like somewhere in San Francisco because the question is about Ayuk, so we'll talk about him in a second. But with Ayuk being as good of a player as he is, there is a target squeeze on him because of all these talented players they have, like McCaffrey, Kittle, Debo. When you flip it to a place like New York, it's almost best case scenario for Malik Nabers because no one's impeding him. Like there's going to be no target competition. He's taking everything he can get, and he's on pace to set the NFL record with 221 targets this year. Like that's unheard. That's just a stupid level. So people are questioning like, is he going to get hurt? It's too much usage, and it's like I don't know, man. Just enjoy the ride. Like I saw someone decline three like mid-level firsts. They declined it for Malik Nabers. So it just shows you like you could probably sell high on him right now because I don't know how his value really gets any higher from this point forward because this is just this is absurd. He's in the like I've seen people say he's in the God tier. It's like, yeah, dude, he's incredible. But let's flip it to Dynasty. Oh yeah, go ahead.
No, I'll say on the first question, I'm not trading for first right now just because of the uncertainty on what they are. Mm-hmm. But I think when that comes around, if it's a 5, 6, 7, I think you start questioning it because you know what it is there, right? Because right now anything can happen. So I mean, that's great. You're like, oh, here's 3 firsts, but it's like I don't know where these firsts will land. Like we project them to be here for it, but at the same time, we talk about all the time. Sometimes you have to capitalize on value because is this his peak? Is this what we're going to see? Or is it like we thought, and sometimes we thought that with Justin Jefferson, but then he continued to say, hold on, he's surpassing that peak, right? Like we had to build a bigger house for him. And, so that could definitely be Nabers there. We talk about that quarterback there as well. With Wan'Dale, Wan'Dale in college too was just a smaller receiver, but plays big. I think that's where he gets it a lot, but he's not someone that's necessarily going to big gain the yards after the catch as much, but he's definitely someone that can bring it down. Like I think, like y'all said, he's a reliable safety blanket underneath, but that safety blanket comes because of Nabers. It should have been like with Hyatt. Hyatt's completely been irrelevant, and he's that one trick, like just speed it down, go downfield, get it. Where Wan'Dale can do the stuff underneath, which becomes better for him at the same time. So I think. You talk about quarterbacks, you talk about, San Fran. Brock Purdy is the quarterback. I'm not hating on Brock Purdy, but I don't think he's elite. I think it's a system that makes him look good, and that's why people can value him as a top 10 dynasty quarterback or quarterback right now. But again, you talk about you put in someone like a CJ Stroud, someone like a Mahomes, someone like Hurts even that knows how to feed everyone perfect to guarantee his guys are still getting targets. that's where it becomes different for Ike. But I think that's more of a quarterback issue, having that cap limit on the targets, because he wants to try to feed everyone, and he's just not getting to everyone effectively as well.
Yeah, I think before we jump into like the CJ Stroud discussion, let's hit this question up real quick from Rams House. So this dynasty question, 1.75 PPR for tight ends. Start 11, 12 team. Looking at their record, they're 1-5. They're doing a league median. Obviously, this team is falling short of expectations. Like if you're 1-5, you're losing, and then you're losing league medians, you're not scoring. For me, like I'm very much in dynasty. I'm trying to get out of J.K. Dobbins, like because of his value is so high and where he's at. But I've been trying to sell him the entire point ever since he started hitting. And Ladd McConkey, it's going to be hard to get a first round because of that offense, right? Like they're just not going to pass enough and do those things. So with his team to like lock up Ayuk for the future, I'm fine doing this move personally.
Yep.
Like if you could flip it into like a first, I would rather do that because there's more upside with the first and it's safer. But like I think Ayuk's a really, really good player and he's good buy low. So for me, like and if I had this team, I just lock up Ayuk. I wouldn't worry about points and I would go from there because I think you're taking two very uncertain assets and you're getting a very, very good NFL wide receiver who's not old. He's in his prime. I think he'll be fine. Is that where you guys are at with this one?
Yeah, I think with Ayuk, I think you take Ayuk over the first right now because potentially Ayuk could be worth more than a first plus down the road. So I think with that, with the first, you're locked into, okay, where is it going to be? Where is it projected? So again, you're not looking at, how teams can finish out. What at 0-3, don't panic, guys. There's still plenty of time left. Your season continues around. We've had a lot of guys. We'll talk about receipts later that we thought we were going to go out there and ball out, and they haven't yet. Is it over for them? No, they can still turn it around and have a great season. It happens time and time again. So, but for this, yeah, I agree. I think you go after Ayuk because I think long term his value becomes more than Dobbins and McConkey just overall. So
yeah,
I think he's just
because in LA too, you have to imagine that they are going to go out and get themselves an alpha in the next year or two if they're building this, and we know. Assuming Harbaugh keeps winning, I put out a tweet the other day was Jim Harbaugh is like the fourth in NFL history in winning percentage.
It's nuts.
Like it's ridiculous. It's like John Madden, like Vince Lombardi or something, some guy I've never heard of, and then Jim Harbaugh. It's stupid. So he's probably going to keep that job, right? For as long as he wants it. And we've seen this throughout his career. So, you have to assume they're going to get an alpha, but at the same time, they're also going to have diminished passing volume throughout Harbaugh's tenure, you would imagine. So, even though it's Herbert, even though it's Ladd, they're going to have an alpha. On the other side, you got Ayuk. George Kittle is 30 years old. Christian McCaffrey, may never play again. We'll see what happens in Germany. But that's the thing, right? Is like Ayuk is going to be, he's just signed. He's going to be the focal point of that offense at some point. And Debo just can't stay healthy because of the role that he plays. So there's a lot of factors in Ayuk's favor for the future. For Ladd, I don't think he's got, he certainly doesn't have wide receiver one upside like Ayuk does.
Yeah, and like if we shift back to Kaepernick when he was the starting quarterback, they never passed it 30 times a game. They got close one year, I think it was 29 passes in the game. But like that's just Harbaugh's style, right? Yeah. And like they're trying to get Herbert to run more. That's not happening this year with all the injuries Herbert's dealing with. Like he's basically just like hanging on for his life back there.
Right.
That team is completely like they are struggling with injuries right now. So it's gonna be, but yeah, Harbaugh's a really good coach, and like Roman knows how to coach a good running attack. That's what they're doing really well. So like I understand that. But yeah, like Ladd McConkey's never he's not gonna be an alpha guy. He's gonna be a guy that lives in the slot, does a lot of good things for you, but you want to compliment to him. I know our buddy Aaron is preaching the Quentin Johnston, like the love right now. And I'm like, he's viable now. It's working. It's a lot better than it was, right? So we'll see how it shakes out. But yeah, I think long term they're gonna add a piece to that team because they need
do the deal.
Yeah, like they got the line kind of set to figure it out and go from there. So yeah, I'm excited to see how the Chargers build it out because it looks like a fun team, man. Like that's all you can ask for with a coach like that. So it's interesting. Do you guys want to jump into some of our buy lows here, or do we want to? Okay, so Jeremy, why don't you kick us off with somebody you are targeting as a buy low right now?
So we're talking about Dynasty, yeah?
Yeah, we can do Dynasty,
yeah. It's really hard. So I guess I'll go with the obvious one who I wrote up this week. It's Jaden Reed. I think Jaden Reed is a guy who you can get for lower than you should be able to get him. We know Jordan Love is on his way back. We know that Jaden Reed in week 1 absolutely went off, granted against the Philadelphia Eagles, but that's where we stand. Last 2 weeks, he's had down weeks, wide receiver 53 and wide receiver 42. I think that's full PPR, might be half, but regardless, the terrible weeks by wide receiver standards. They face Minnesota this week. Not a great matchup, especially if Love sits or limited. He's probably not going to do well this week. Then he gets the Rams, the Cardinals, the Texans, the Jaguars, and the Lions before his bye. The schedule lines up perfectly. Jordan Love is going to be healthy, certainly by next week. And Jaden Reed is the number one target in this offense when he's healthy. Dobbs has been doing good things by Dobbs standards. Christian Watson has been almost invisible through the first 3 weeks of the season. And then, of course, you have the remainder, Wicks, and who am I missing? Somebody else in there.
Watson.
Watson or Dubs.
But who cares, right? Like it's Jaden Reed here. It's Jaden Reed and Jacobs, and so far the Packers have proven that that's kind of how they want to run their offense if they can run their offense that way. And so while I like some of the other pieces here, I really want Jaden Reed, especially in PPR leagues. And he's using the running game. So this is like Debo, Samuel light usage, and we know this team is good. We know this team is going to be, for the most part, playing with leads, and Jaden Reed is not the deep downfield threat where they need to get chunk yards, even though he can do that. He's more of a closer to the line of scrimmage kind of guy, and he's just eating up those targets when he can. And I think even though he's only had 2 and 6 targets, I think he's in line for more targets once the season gets rolling, Love gets rolling, and I really like him long term.
Yeah, I think that's a really good one. And you're kind of taking advantage of the issues that the lack of Jordan Love in the offense and how it's worked for Jaden Reed, because he was wide receiver 1 week 1, but nobody really remembers that because of how run heavy the offense has been with Malik Willis. I think he's a really good target in that range of guys that are kind of valued around like a late first range of wide receiver. Kind of he's in that JMO area, kind of those type of players. Or if you want like a veteran like a Terry McLaurin, those type of guys, it's really like who has the upside that doesn't have the target competition. And I think he very much fits that. So I think that's a really good buy low. And like talk about buy lows, here's what Jamie did in week 2. Sold Dobbins straight up for Debo. That's really good because Debo's a true difference maker. And we see with this, like obviously the injury is part of just what Debo's game is because he's like, he's Debo. He's not Debo light. He's Debo. He gets the rushing attack. But yeah, SC, when you're looking at buy lows, who is someone that you're targeting in Dynasty?
So 2 really right now. One, shout out Jamie, man. I see you on every single show that we do asking comments, so appreciate the love, bro. But two really. I'm gonna start off one with the running back, Isaac Arando, San Francisco. I know everyone's on Jordan Mason, but we know San Francisco goes to their running backs, and we know it's a thing about the system works. I'm not knocking CMC. CMC did his thing in Carolina too. He is arguably the best back to ever play the game from fantasy football perspective. You can argue that. But we also know the system in San Francisco works for running backs. Who talked about Jordan Mason before Jordan Mason came on the field? There you go, Jesse. He is bringing him up. But but it's like you did it here as Dave over and stuff like that. But again, listen to Fantasy Football Universe, you're bringing him up. But that's the same reason why I'm saying Rondo, because right now he is the next man up. So if something happens with him, if you have Jordan Mason, you should be trying to target for him, just to have that backup as well. Because again, during college, he was getting hit a lot. He doesn't have that great contact background though, but we also saw the combine, he has that speed. So if you get him the open holes that the 49ers do allow, then Rondo goes out there and does some good things, and he can break off some big plays as well. So I think right now, because the eyes are on Mason, because the worries are on CMC, you could probably go out there and get Rondo for someone that may be struggling. Maybe you go out there and trade him for Javonte and you get something else with Rondo or something, So some good things there. And then my other guy is going to be a tight end in Brenton Strange. We know Evan Ingram, like you mentioned, Kittle's 30. So is Evan Ingram. And Evan Ingram, not to knock him, when he came to Jacksonville, started balling. Now it's like, okay, this is the Evan Ingram we saw his rookie year. But it's a hamstring injury, man. And like the Achilles for the running backs, the issue that hurts, right now, worry about AJ Brown. Hamstrings hurt wide receivers. Like it's something that can linger over. They may have soreness. It may just not have the speed or whatever, even, getting different, things going on with their hamstring, whatever it may be. It's just an injury that you don't like to see. And with the 30-year-old getting that now in Evan Ingram, Brenton Strange should fill into that role. I mean, the past 2 weeks, he has 11 targets, 5 receptions, so he's doing some good things. He's being involved in the offense. It looks crowded, but it's not really as crowded as the paper looks, right? You have Thomas, you have Kirk, you have Gabe Davis. I get that, but they still get their tight end involved, and Brendan Strays will get some usage. So I think there's some upside with him throughout the season. And he, we talked about him as a rookie profile too. I really like his game, and I think he could be someone that Jacksonville really enjoys to have on the field.
Yeah, that's a really fun one, just because of like the uncertainty with Ingram right now, his injuries. Like Strange is going to play, like he's going to play this week, and you saw it last week. He was fine. To your point, yeah, like that will like lead into my buy low with Brian Thomas Jr., who I've been hyping about. But yeah, for like tight ends, we are just so desperate for anyone with a pulse. Like I'm talking, if you're running routes, I'm fine with it, because like I think there's two ways to attack the tight end position, and I know Jacob Sanderson said it best. He's like, for the people that are saying like banish the tight end position, like you're just being too soft. Like deal with it. It's in the league. We're not going to banish it, right? You can do two ways. You can just live with your dart throws, or you could pick one guy and target and just go with that, because it's so bad right now. We have guys that were like, we're hyping up Hunter Henry each week, and that's not what we want to do, because that's how bad the tight end position is, right? We're getting Njoku back, not this week, but he should be back, and then Hawkinson's coming back soon. So we get a couple more darts and with a healthy Kittle, but like there's literally one guy averaging 10 points per game. Like in PPR leagues, it's bananas. So it's just a disaster. So if you can get anyone with a pulse, I am fine with that. And with Strange, they took him early in the draft. They liked him. So they clearly like what he brings to the table. So he might be like when they let Ingram walk and they move on from him, he could be a replacement for him. So I like him. Similar, I think if you're stashing tight ends, I think Sanat's a really good one as well, because he's just been banished this year, which is what my issue was with the entire year with Zach Ertz and all that fun stuff, right? Because I was like, Zach Ertz is the ultimate cock block. Because what does he do? He blocks these young tight ends, and he just runs the routes. They're not getting on the field. So we did it with Dallas.
Though, Jesse.
Yeah.
He looks healthy.
It's good. Yeah. I mean, it's a short contract. Like, I don't think he's going to be there long term, right? So I'm not too worried about it. But that's what Zach Ertz does. He's target magnet. But I'll go back to the buy low with Brian Thomas Jr. Yeah. Like, it's not happening with Christian Kirk. The offense, they're clearly trying to run it downfield. They lead the league in deep throw attempts with T-Law, and I don't know if that's the best strategy right now, but they're pushing it downfield with Gabe Davis. We're seeing it. Gabe Davis just does not look explosive. He does not look it. And then they're kind of moving away from Christian Kirk. Evan Ingram's kind of been back and forth doing the injuries. At least Brian Thomas Jr., I thought he was the best wide receiver as soon as they drafted him. He's looked like the best wide receiver on the field. T-Law's missed him, so I get it, but I think at some point it's going to connect. He's going to be the true wide receiver one on that team. And that's really the key that unlocks that offense, because until that happens, with the issues up front, the running game, the uncertainty with ETN and how up and down he is, like they need someone to step up. Otherwise, could be a really tough year in Jacksonville, because you look at the record, they're struggling. So they desperately need Brian Thomas Jr., and I think he's capable enough to do it. Like last year, he had over like 30 yards a target, which was in college, which was like the record since 2014. Like Jaden Daniels was chucking it down to him. And interestingly enough, it was like his like ascension alongside Malik Nabers that really had that offense going last year with LSU. Like they had Malik Nabers the year before, it could cut him off, and Brian Thomas Jr. was like, hey, I'm really good as well too. And you're seeing what Malik Nabers is doing. I don't expect Brian Thomas Jr. to be that good, but I expect him to be a good NFL wide receiver at that price. Like I'm all aboard. So yeah, I think.
But SC, let me just add a quick bit of context, because I know you want to go off and feel free. But 3 games for Brian Thomas this season: 4 for 47, 2 for 94, and 5 for 48 on 9 targets last week. It's a super buy low position, because he's been wide receiver 18, 27, and 47 in 3 weeks. When he figures it out in the second half and they just start feeding him, he's going to go off. So he already looks good. They need to figure out this offense, but Brian Thomas is going to be an ultimate second half of the year buy, and certainly second year buy.
But they with Thomas too. I drafted him. I mean, he was great. I was trading to get back in the late and first, and I took him. If I had 110 to 112, Thomas was a pick. Guaranteed. I had him just about everywhere. But on that, even what you said at like LSU, he wasn't like with Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels can throw that ball deep. He knows how to do that. And right now it seems like they're trying to make Trevor Lawrence do it, and Lawrence isn't that type of guy to necessarily do the same things that Daniels is doing. And so it's kind of like they're playing to what they know Thomas is good at, but it's not what their quarterback is good at. So it's kind of causing this crash that's like this isn't connecting right. So with that, I don't know if Thomas ever sees the like massive targets, like Nabers type of targets, but I know he's going to continue to see targets, and it's going to be stretch targets. And he's someone that he's good. He's not he's the rich man. He's what we want Christian Watson to be, right? People wanted that, but Watson's not that type of. He is that guy, but Brian Thomas is just so much better. He's so much more reliable. He can go out there and do it, So I'm excited to see with him. But actually, I was gonna ask this though because I was gonna say this is a buy low. Is Trevor Lawrence a buy low, or are we out on him now? Because former number 1 overall pick, it's looking kind of scary right now. But at the same time, like his wide receivers aren't bad. It's not. He's in that void area where it's like I don't know what to do with him right now, right?
I think they're very close to firing their head coach and their offensive coordinator. I think like with Doug Peterson, clearly the offense is not working, so it might be after this week, might be a buy low when they like fire them out there. But like the weird thing about Dynasty Market is we're going to get hyped because how this will work is if they fire their head coach, they're going to play well for a week because they'll get motivated, right? Because like, oh yeah, new coach. And then you come back down to earth. So I mean, like it could be an up and down season for Trevor Lawrence. But yeah, like you have to have faith in like the talented player he was and the situation he is. You hope it improves. Because like Press Taylor, I don't know what the hell Press Taylor is doing in Jacksonville. It clearly doesn't make sense. So they need to figure that out. They might have to like start cleaning the house to make it work. Like I think it just comes down to how much talent you believe Trevor Lawrence has and how good he is. But this is kind of like the issue they're having. It's kind of like you said, it's not connecting. I think it will connect over time. But it's like Brian Thomas Jr. He's not the talent Malik Nabers is, but like he's still a very good NFL wide receiver. And like he's similar to George Pickens, right? Like it's gonna take him a little bit longer. Where like George Pickens is a very good NFL wide receiver. His situation just sucks right now because it's Justin Fields, it's that Pittsburgh, it's Arthur Smith, and all that fun stuff. But you see the talent, and like whenever I see talented players in situations, maybe it's not the best. You buy the talent with the hope that the situation and everything improves. Because if it connects and gets better, that's when you get a truly difference maker. And that's kind of my thought process behind it. So for your question on T-Law, yeah, like I don't mind buying T-Law at the depressed price. Because once you get outside quarterback 14 in Dynasty, it gets real sketchy. It's like a bunch of old dudes like the Baker Mayfields of the world. The lots of the young guys, it's like, who else is there? Like I don't see there's anyone else that has really good upside to jump up multiple rounds. And I think T-Law could do that from his price right now. What do you think, Jeremy? Is that someone you're interested in buying, or are you just kind of out?
I was before the season, and now I'm just kind of out. It just feels bad in Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence was one of the most sacked going into week 3. Then they played the Bills. They lost 47-10. And it looks like, if I'm counting these numbers right, he was sacked an additional 5 times against the Bills. So he might be leading the leagues in sacks, in being sacked at the moment. This offensive line was not good coming into the season. They were PFF's 23rd ranked O-line. That hasn't gotten any better. And they haven't been facing, top-notch competition. Certainly not Miami. Cleveland, okay. They're good defense. Buffalo has a good pass rush. But Houston, Indy, even Chicago, these are beatable, defenses up front. I don't know. I think he can maybe turn it on, but it's just not looking good. I agree. Doug Peterson isn't long for this job. They have a bye in week 12. I'd be really surprised if Peterson makes it past week 12.
Yeah.
The biggest thing with like Lawrence, it's same thing that you're going in with Bryce Young. You're trying to buy Bryce Young, is people are going to say, well, he was the first overall pick, so his value is going to be higher than what it really is. Like as far as value and what they're producing, like they're going to revert back to that. Like, no, man, they're going to believe in he's the first. I mean, even on like Sleeper, they're saying Bryce Young's going to start again. I don't know if Andy Dalton continues to play like he's playing. Like, I don't know if we see that, but it is smart to, have him learn a little bit more, right? And you hear Tom Brady talk about like we need these rookies to develop. Like it's not smart to put every rookie in there week 1, and we're seeing that, and it's kind of crushing them. So now they're having to go back and then get back. And, we saw Baker Mayfield in a sense kind of go through it. Now he's looking like a possible top 10 this season, but a lot of things in that nature where it's just saying, hey, if you go find the right buy for him, I'm not giving a first for Lawrence, but in a super flex, that's probably what his value is because he was a number 1 overall pick. And it's like, bro, but he hasn't been producing like that, so.
Like, he's in that late, like he's right next to Jameson Williams, keeps very cut, right next to Deebo Samuel, Jared Goff, Baker Mayfield, Jordan Addison. Like I would be fine setting off the Jordan Addisons and the Baker Mayfield just because I don't see the true upside from those guys. So I'm fine losing production this year to take the upside shot on him. But that's just more how I play. If you want the win now production, yeah, you could move off the T-Line. You get like Tank Dell or something. I'd be fine pivoting to Tank Dell. I think like his price is a buy or sell, I think, depending on how you view him. It's not like egregious one way or the other. It's QB18. It's kind of, it is what it is.
Fair.
And then I guess let's kick it. We had a few questions in here. So I'm assuming this is redraft. Would you guys trade Higgins and Chubb for Pickens? It seems like steep for Pickens. The team is 1-2, so they're looking for a change. I get it. I mean, I don't really value Chubb. We don't know when he's going to come back. Here's his team right now: Jaden Reed, Rice, Higgins, Coleman, Bijan. I mean,
I don't think you need to.
You got McBride. I think you just got to be patient with this team as much as that sucks. Now, the problem is your quarterback is Anthony Richardson, and that's the issue. Like, you were counting on him, and he's been a disaster. So, if you want to pick up like a streamer quarterback, you could do that, I think, and you'd be fine. Like, it's just,
I would try to trade Pittman for Pickens or Higgins for Pickens straight up if you want Pickens. But I feel like in this point, you put Chubb to put that cherry on top to just try to get it. But I wouldn't necessarily do that. It's like I would say someone's trying to buy low on Chubb with him being injured, but Higgins has the value alone to just get Pickens.
Yeah, and I don't believe in Chubb long term. I think that injury is going to hinder him. That said, Cleveland is a dumpster fire, and he's clearly the best back by far in that backfield. So even if he's 80% and he comes back and they decide to give him the ball 20 times, he's going to be a viable RB2 option for your team. That said, George Pickens, 7, 4, and 7 targets over the first 3 weeks, turned that into wide receiver 26, 63, and 45. Hasn't found the end zone. This is an Arthur Smith / Justin Fields problem because the offense is good enough and the Steelers are winning games. So they don't really need George Pickens to go off. I don't think they're going to be feeding him those massive plays. And can he break one? Sure. But everyone's calling for the George Pickens breakout this week. I don't see it. The Indy defense is not good. But I just don't think that they're really like feeding him more than 2 opportunities deep downfield, and those Justin Fields deep downfield balls aren't great. Plus, the coverage is leaning to George Pickens. There's nobody else to cover.
Yeah, I don't mind Pickens as a buy low. Honestly, I think he's a good NFL wide receiver, and I think he's better overall wide receiver than Higgins. Higgins just specializes in a few things that make him like unique. But it's been up and down for him too, so I don't mind this deal. If you prefer it, like go for it. Chubb's not going to deter me in a way because of how much Cleveland passes. I don't think we're getting Chubb like we talked about. Like, they're super pass heavy, one of the highest neutral pass rates in the NFL, even with Deshaun Watson. And like, they're kind of having line issues, so I don't think it's the same blocking front that it was. So I don't mind it. It's kind of just like I whoever you prefer is fine with me on that one. I don't see either of those guys being true difference makers for you. So if you prefer Pickens, go for it. If you prefer, Higgins, like, you can hold them. It's not one I'm really gonna put too much effort in the thought process to do because they're gonna be top 30-ish wide receivers each week. I think Pickens has more upside, but the downside in the offense is really, really low.
We'll say the Colts have some safeties in the back that get after it too, so that upside that people are chasing might not happen because the Colts are going to allow him to really stretch the field as much as we think he might. So,
yeah, that Colts defense is a work in progress. They ran into an offense that made them look a little bit better than they actually are. So we'll see how it goes. I mean, this is the week. If he doesn't hit this weekend, it's like, gonna be rough, right?
It's not happening. Sorry.
I think this is a good thing to kind of pivot into for guys who are higher and lower on this week. Walker is finally off the injury report, so it seems like he's playing. For me, I'm a little bit TBD on Walker because I don't know how much work he's going to see. So I would have him higher in my rankings, but he's about running back 20 this week. I kind of want to see it with Walker personally. Is that where you guys are at with Walker and Charbonnet in this offense? Are you starting both of those guys? Or are you starting one of those guys? How are you guys going this week with those guys?
Go ahead, Jesse.
Yeah, I have him like.
Oh, no, sorry, Jeremy. Sorry, my bad.
Jesse, do it. What?
Yeah.
What? No, listen. Well, I'll just quickly say that, look, it's against Detroit. That's the biggest problem here. Like, if Walker play, I don't want to start either of these guys. Honestly, if I'm forced to start one, I'm starting Walker. I think Charbonnet takes the backseat again. They might need both of them, but truthfully, they need to execute in the passing game. They need to use these backs as receivers, if at all, really. So I love JSN. I love DK always. I love DK every week. I don't mind Lockett this week, but yeah, Charbonnet, Walker, it's going to be a down week anyway. So I'm not like going to force Walker into my lineup. If he's active, yeah, okay, why not?
Yeah, the front lines have is really, really good. And I heard a stat that Geno has the highest success rate versus man. And interestingly enough, the Lions play the most man coverage in the NFL. So like, it could be a Geno week, folks. So like, I think that's where the Seahawks are going to be. Grubb is smart. So yeah, Geno's inside my top 12 quarterbacks this week. Like, I love playing Geno this week.
Yeah, that off that Lions have a good front seven too that can close in on the gap. So this may be the wait and see, like you were saying, Jesse, on seeing what it is. I do love Charbonnet. I think Charbonnet is the better complete back, but I know Walker has a lot of explosive to him as well. So if you don't have to start it, I wouldn't start him this week.
Essie, so who's a guy, if we're looking at our rankings this week, I don't know if you finished yours or not, but who's a guy you're higher on and who's a guy you're lower on this week for rankings?
Higher on, I mean, I was really waiting for the confirmation of Adams being out, and it is. So I'm gonna say, Trey Tucker out in Las Vegas. I think he's a guy that's stretching the field. It's something that they're trying to do in Las Vegas. It feels like is just push the ball down the field, and Tucker has that speed. Where Jacoby Myers is someone that you possibly buy low because I think he's just a valued target, but I do think Trey Tucker has that usage. He had 9 targets last week, and he made the big plays happen. So I think we're going to see that again. So I believe he's someone that he could be on your waivers unless people saw it and they happy. But I picked him up on some waivers just this morning as well. So I would go check it because I think he's someone that as long as Adams out, we're going to see more and more. And honestly, even with Adams, he may end up pushing Myers out, and they may use him a lot more. So I'm in on Trey Tucker. I like what I'm seeing with him. I'm liking the usage. And again, this is with Gardner Minshew, so I think that the team likes him. So even with a quarterback, potential future quarterback next year, he's still going to be someone involved with the offense. And, you can definitely get him on a better price right now than you will at the end of the season.
Yeah, I think he's a good play this week. Like he stretches the field. That's what he does, and I think he gets a big plays this week for them.
I do have him over Pickens, just over. I have him one spot over Pickens. So
where do you? Is he like top 24 for you, or how high do you?
Yeah, I have him at 26, and I have Pickens at 27.
Nice. All right, Jeremy, I'll push it to you. Who's the guy that you are significantly higher on this week?
Yeah, it's Alan Lazard. I did my rankings and submitted them, and Fantasy Pros was like, "Are you sure he's way above ECR?" And I said, "Nope, publish it." Alan Lazard is my wide receiver 27. He's going up against Denver. Decent back end outside of Patrick Surtain, who we know shuts down guys. But that's what I'm counting on completely. I'm counting on Garrett Wilson to be completely erased in this game, like all 3 number 1 wide receivers were before him this season by Surtain. And I'm also counting on the skill of Aaron Rodgers to get Wilson the ball enough, but also to pivot when he needs to. I love Tyler Conklin this week, and I love Alan Lazard. He's proven he can get the touchdowns. He's the half PPR wide receiver 16 through 3 weeks, 9 targets, 4 targets, and 3 targets, but 3 touchdowns on the season. So Alan Lazard, we know we can get it done in the red zone. We know if Wilson gets erased, that he can pick up hot, heavy target volume, and we expect the Jets to win this game, but not by a ton, right? Denver can at least keep it close for the first half, maybe 3 quarters before the Jets pull away, and that means Aaron Rodgers is going to be looking for Lazard and Conklin early and often.
That's a really good call. I think it's been interesting to see that third guy that's stepping forward. It looks to be Lazard, and if he's the end zone target, like we talk about this with Rodgers, there's always that third guy in the offense. So I think Lazard has another chance, man. Get a touchdown, show up in the box, or give you 10 plus points. Like You'll take that from him. Like that's good production. For me this week, it's James Conner. Like I love the matchup for James Conner. Yeah. I think he's set up to smash. I have him as my running back 4 against Washington. Like that defense is just trash. Like they can't stop. They can't stop a nosebleed, man. Like I was looking at rankings and I was like, YOLO, let's go. That offense is firing all cylinders. Kyler Murray looks great. They're doing Marvin Harrison Jr. And without Trey McBride this week, I don't expect them to shift it to Elijah Higgins or anything like that on tight end. It's going to just be more James Conner workload. So I'm expecting 20 plus touches for James Conner in this game, possibly a couple touchdowns. Like I'm expecting a big game against Washington. And like we see the projected total, it's really high. They're one of the top scoring teams in the league. So yeah, I'm riding with James Conner this week. I mean, with how this goes, it might burn me, but you know what? We're riding with the Cardinals. I love what I've seen from them in offense. The offensive coordinator has them cooking. So yeah, like I'm firing up James Conner everywhere, confident. He's so absolutely smashing. And then like I've taken the over on rushing yards, touchdowns, all that fun stuff with Conner. So I've been Conner built this week, you could say. And,
I have an RB5 actually, so you have a 4 you one spot.
I was like, how high can I push him? And like with Kamara's injury, that was the one thing where I was like, you know what? Like, I was looking at Gibbs. I was like, sorry, Gibbs. I love you, but not this week, my friend, because they expected for Gibbs a little bit lower than I wanted to be. Like, I still need a little bit more. It's just Montgomery and all that fun stuff. With the Seahawks defense, it could be an interesting day for that offense, but they should soar. On the flip side, Essie, who's someone you are lower on this week?
Man, I would probably say Anthony Richardson. I think that's a guy that I'm sliding going against Pittsburgh right now. I have him at quarterback 21 right now. I just think Pittsburgh has a nice front seven. Anthony Richardson is not throwing it accurately enough, out with Alec Pierce being the guy in the first 2 weeks. Pittman's kind of just nothing, Taylor's maybe your guy you want to fire up, but right now the Colts offense looks like I want to avoid it at this point. I'm trying to pivot off Pittman where I can. I want to pivot off Anthony Richardson where I have him, but at the same time, like I feel at this point I'm selling lower than what I actually could or what I had hoped for him. So he's just sliding it, But this was the worry when he got drafted was the accuracy and what he could do. We know he can throw the ball, to another country, but he's not throwing it to his receivers, and that's what he needs to do, right? Yeah. So right now he's my lower one at QB 21.
That's a good call. Yeah, it could be a rough week for him. Sometimes that happens. I think there is always the potential it blows up and you look foolish just because of how much he runs and that offense in general. But yeah, it's
for sure.
It's been a struggle until he gets that freaking arm strength brought down. Like he's looking like peak Mike Vick in that commercial where he's throwing it so hard he's blowing guys back 15 yards past the field, right? So if he can figure that out, like I think it'll work. I don't know if it's gonna happen, but yeah, it makes sense. Jeremy, who is somebody you are lower on this week?
Yeah, just like Anthony Richardson, who's my QB 24 this week, which is ridiculous. I'm getting a little spicier, and my QB 10 is Lamar Jackson. I know people are really high on Lamar. He's got that safe floor. I just don't see the ceiling this week against Buffalo. I know they're at home in Baltimore, but you look, Zay Flowers typically thrives in zone coverage. All right, he should be wide open, but we don't know what the hell's going on with Mark Andrews. Isaiah likely is not necessarily that guy week to week, and we know Derrick Henry loves to pound the rock. So I think this is a game where Lamar hits his rushing totals, where Henry goes off, and Zay gets his. I just don't see a massive game out of Lamar Jackson. I think I have him right now below Dak Prescott. Dak obviously already played, but that's what was like 220, 230 and 2 touchdowns. I think Lamar, even with the rushing, I'm satisfied with Lamar below Dak Prescott this week. I have Baker Mayfield against Philly over him. I have Mahomes somehow over him. I just don't love it. And then you're talking about guys like Sam Darnold, Geno Smith, Jordan Love, if he plays and feels healthy, who all have the opportunity in decent matchups to do well. So yeah, Lamar, I get it. We like him. He's got the floor. I just don't see the ceiling this week.
You guys are killing my heart with these rushing quarterbacks. We're just anti this week. It's rough. The interesting thing with the Ravens this week is they have to keep up with Josh Allen. Like he's playing out of this world. We talk about being God tier.
Yes,
that's Josh Allen quarterback play. His EPA is double the next best quarterback in the NFL, which is Jaden Daniels right now. He's double him on a weekly basis. Like it's absurd how well he's playing. So Lamar's got to bring his best game. If that happens, this game could get out of hand. I think the Ravens defense is good enough to keep pace, but yeah, if he doesn't play well and turnovers and stuff happen, it could be a game where he just struggles a little bit. So I hear you. I get it. I understand it.
On that, Jesse, Josh Allen has faced Arizona, Miami, and Jacksonville. Not exactly a murderer's row of defenses. We love him. We know he's great. But against Baltimore, I agree with you. I think they're going to limit him, which is why I'm lower on Lamar.
At the same time, though, for that, if Josh Allen starts going off, Lamar's the type of player that he'll go on the sidelines. He'll be like, give me the damn ball. I need to go out there and make the play. I'm going to outshow this guy too. So that's where it could. But at the same time, he's never had King Henry where he's like, nah, bro, I'm the king. I hold the ball here. 150 yards last week and he had 20 plus carries, So this is a different backfield that Lamar's not used to. He doesn't need to be the main guy doing it. So I'm not mad at those. That's nice.
Yeah, I think I don't expect them to be positive game scripts. So I think it's gonna be a little bit worse for. I think Henry's like my RB15. I still like Henry this week. The Bills defense has been very stout. I know the matchups have not been the best in the world, but that defense has been very stout. So I'm curious to see if they get Henry going or not. It's just that was kind of the thing with Lamar. I was a little bit lower on him, because Henry's going to steal that goal line work this year. So he's like my quarterback 4 overall. But yeah, we talk about good defenses. And this week, the nightmare matchup is for a certain Garrett Wilson going against quite possibly the best quarterback in the world, Patrick Surtain. Not only is he a really good quarterback, he also holds a lot and gets a lot of penalties against wide receivers. It's a double nightmare scenario where he's not giving up yards. And then on the plays he gets beat, he's holding you in penalties. I saw a statistic earlier where he's only given up 63 receiving yards. Also, 84 penalty yards this year. That tells you, you ain't getting nothing on him. So for Garrett Wilson, he's my wide receiver 28 this week. And I was like, man, it's really hard because Garrett Wilson's so good. I will say if they are smart with the Jets, they would move him into the slot, move him around a little bit, mix it up. So he's not just getting him in the entire game. So you move him away from Surtain because Surtain stays kind of on an island. They can do that to get away from him. I just don't know if they're going to do that with the OC with Hackett. Like, it just doesn't seem like he's that type of OC to kind of mix it up each and every week. So for me, Garrett Wilson is a guy, like, I'm not necessarily going out of my way to start. If I have to start him, sure. Like, you know, you can only drop him so low because how good he is. But yeah, wide receiver 28, that one hurt my heart. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
Oh yes, and the Jets fans probably hate me even more because I put out a tweet earlier where we talked about it with Malik Nabers. So yeah, it's not your week in my life, Garrett Wilson. So yeah, we're fading him on that. But yeah, it's fun stuff. So that's how it goes sometimes, you know. We're in on that. Yep. Let's get a few of these questions out of the way, actually, because we got a few. We'll do a little rapid fire since we got a little bit of time. Can you guys get a second for Dontavian Wicks?
Yes,
I think you can. I on the flip side, I would think it's like, what's the upside with Wicks? Like, how high is he going to be? Is he ever going to be worth a one? I don't think so. Like, he's cut into Christian Watson's snap share and routes run, so he's like kind of, you know, handcuffing him. So I don't know. What do you think, SC? Could you get a second for him?
If you can, I'm doing it. I wouldn't give a second for him, but if you can get a second for him, I would do it. Just because I think once that time comes around 2026, the second's going to hold more value than what Wicks is. And that could just be them adding more receivers, right, or anything like that. So Reed is really the only guy I want in that offense. I say that because I also would try to buy Romeo Dubs just because I know Dubs and Love have a nice connection. They have built up chemistry, so I do like that. And you could get him for less than Wicks. So if you're trading the second, no. But if you are getting the second, yeah, I would do it.
Yeah, if I'm offering a second for a wide receiver in that range, I'm going to go for Shaheed with the Saints just because I think there's more upside as well. I don't know how much more I want to give up. Like, you know, like a second seems fine for both of those guys. I just think that Shaheed has more upside. So if we're doing that, yeah, like I would target him. So I would maybe go trade Wicks for Shaheed, see what the plus I would have to give up, do something like that. I think that would work out a little bit better. We talked about this earlier in the week with Eric Hall being for a second. Yeah, like it's kind of paying for what you expect the production to be, not the production that is there. So it's fine. I think it's a little high, but overall, it's not too shabby. All right, Aaron,
especially for a tight end.
Yeah, like tight end's such a dumpster fire. If you believe in Eric Hall, I'm fine with it. You just have to be patient if you're paying that second. Like you have to be willing to ride it out. Rest of season rankings. How are you guys ranking these guys? We got Waddle, Pittman, Higgins, and Deontay.
God damn it!
It's for me. It's gonna be gross. It's Deontay Higgins.
Yes.
I am very nervous about Miami. I really don't want to do Pittman. I'll say Waddle, but those two guys I really want nothing to do with right now, which is really unfortunate. Because you can get a first for Waddle. So like I'm thinking in Dynasty, I would just like ship off Waddle for that price. I know somebody like
you think Tua's done then, right? With that expectation, you're like Tua's out.
I just don't know when he's coming back, and I don't want to pay the price on him. Like that's like you can't start Waddle in the meantime. It's just burning a hole. So if you're doing it on a rebuild, sure you have a lot of firsts. I get it, but like it's just unfortunate, man.
I'm gonna try to take for Waddle.
Yeah, I would definitely take Tank. I would.
Agree.
I think Higgins, Deontay, Waddle, Pittman though. It's rough too, man. Because Pittman, again quarterback issue. He's just not hitting him in the stride. But it's also showing Pittman is just that stretch wide receiver. He's not the guy that's going to be moved around or doing a lot of things for him. So
Pittman's last for sure for all three of us. I go Deontay, Waddle, Higgins, Pittman. I think Higgins is going to be good. I just believe in Waddle coming back. And, you know, I don't think Tyreek is going to stay down for too long, regardless of who the quarterback is. So if it's Snoop out there, you know, Huntley, I think, is a far better choice than Skylar Thompson. They had to start Skylar last week. They just brought Huntley in. So, but I think Higgins will be fine. He's just not who we thought he was.
Yeah, I think we saw Bateman go off with Huntley years ago, where it gave us hope as Bateman truth. It was like, oh my God, something's happening in that offense. Obviously did not work out. So it was like one of those rain games where it was like a blowout and they came back and they got a lot of points. So, you know, if they can support them, this is similar to the EPA merchants where it's like San Francisco, Minnesota, Miami, like these teams, really good schemes. So like all Huntley has to do is just NFL quality quarterback. I don't know if he is, but I'm willing to find out. So that'll make it a little bit more interesting.
Check your waivers because let's just, you know, I'd say check your waivers because they just say he's going to start and who never knows. I mean, the offense has the firepower, right? So all you need sometimes is that. And again, maybe the wide receivers make him look better than what he is, and you sell on that upside.
Yeah. The latter two, maybe not so much, but Njoku, Ingram, or Pitts, who are you guys going with out of these three? For me, it's clearly Njoku. He's the one that is stepping into the offense where there's They desperately need him. I get it. I know the issues with Deshaun Watson. He's still giving you points. It's kind of like my case with Amari Cooper. I want to buy into these offenses where I trust the guys to be 1 or 2 on their team. The whole Pitts thing, dude, he's like 3rd on his team, and it's just a disaster. Like, he's not getting looks at all. Ingram, it's an injury issue and stuff like that. So I think Njoku's by far the best one if I'm targeting them. Him and Hawkinson are my 2 tight end buys if I'm buying tight ends. Like, I want those guys because they have not sucked this year. And he was going to smash, got injured. So that's where I'm going with that. Where do you guys have these 3?
Can we tell Kirk Cousins to leave? Like, get out the room. He told us he was going to feed the targets to Kyle Pitts. Like, he said, I got you, man.
Yeah.
He has not done that. He has not lived up to his promise. So, Kirk Cousins, you owe us an explanation on why this is not happening. Let's get Michael Penix in there so we can do it.
I'll tell you why. He didn't take the number 8. He's rocking 18. I don't know why he didn't take Pitts' number. Pitts is like, oh, yeah, you can have my number 8. Just give me targets, Cousins. 18. You know, like, it's not happening.
Give me the number, Spike.
There you go. There you go.
All right. So, would you guys trade K9 for Jacobs to the Sharp owner? I think it's fine. I like both of those running back for the season.
I would.
Yeah.
I think it just depends on who you prefer. I think rest of the season I have Jacobs slightly above Kenneth Walker, but like, dude, Kenneth Walker looks really good in that offense, and that offense should be good. It's just they're both like high RB2s. I think Jacobs has a little bit more upside just because no one's touching Jacobs in the backfield.
Right.
Yeah.
And if Mixon doesn't play, are we playing Michael Wilson, Akers, or I'm assuming that's Kenneth Walker? Yeah, I'd play if Kenneth Walker's playing. I'm playing Kenneth Walker with those guys. Would you guys play
Not against Detroit?
Are you playing Michael Wilson over him, or are you playing Akers?
I am.
I play Wilson.
So Michael Wilson against the Washington secondary. We know MHJ is going to get all the coverage, but he's still going to go off. We know Greg Dortch is probably going to go off, but no Trey McBride. I like all the Cards pass catchers this week against just a horrible secondary in Washington. Kenneth Walker against Detroit. That's a tough one for me. I might start Walker, but Wilson's going to be enticing. Akers is off my board.
Yeah, I say Wilson. Akers, man, selling while you can. I'm not in. I'm not buying it.
It's this week's the last week it's going to happen. It was like a 2-week window. I know the injury expert said he's back. Like, the interesting thing with like these secondary or tertiary options, like the Michael Wilsons of the world, I know the situation's really good, but they still have to produce. Like, they have to earn the target. And this is always my issue with these guys when we push them too high. Like, sometimes you get the Juwan Jennings where he's like just a good wide receiver that's buried. Usually it doesn't. So that's my concern. And if Walker's going to get the volume, I'm going to trust the volume. So I think it just really depends on how you view those guys. You could do Wilson over Walker. I get it. Akers is the same thing. It's just ugly volume. Like, they should be winning that game. So he'll see more volume because it's not a lot of pass catches. He'll be down. So I think it's fine. But like, he got a touchdown last week, saved your bacon. It kind of is what it is. Aaron's post about the Scarlett Johansson. Yeah. Keep trade cut. Yeah. Okay.
Oh. I love Scarlett, but I gotta go. I'm keeping Daddario. I'm sorry. We can cut Kaylee. She's gone. Sorry.
Kaylee's the cut. I don't. You know.
Yeah. This is that meme where there's a Hydra and there's 2 that are like regular Hydra, and there's that weird, awkward looking face, like totally busted, ugly Hydra. That's Kaylee Kuo.
Oh, tough break. Jamie's keeping Kuo. Cool, bro.
I'll flip it. Scarlett does have the most value though there for sure.
I don't know if she does. True. I mean, she does for me. Like, I'm a sucker, but it might be Alexandria. Let's see. So Aaron's asking about firing up both teams' defense. Yeah, like Dolphins and Titans. Yeah, it's gonna be a low scoring game this week. Gonna be rough. We need Will Levis to step forward for that offense. Like, he needs to figure it out. He has the talent. It's just decision making. It's always been the issue. He's got a cannon. Similar to Anthony Richardson, they both have really strong arms. Decision making and accuracy of issues for both of those guys. He just doesn't run like Anthony Richardson. But yeah, like, I get it. Like, I think, interestingly enough, I would probably rather do the Dolphins defense with Huntley playing, but you could do that another way. All right, here's a quick question. Half PPR, who are you guys going with? And we'll probably wrap up since our questions on this.
Yeah, I might choose Thomas here. Half PPR, though, that makes it rough. But, I mean, Texans secondary is vulnerable to allow some big plays, and that's what we were just talking about with Brian Thomas earlier. So I think he could be in for potentially his first 100-yard game. So I think Thomas here. Shakir, it's just against the Ravens D, man. I mean, the Ravens D, they can always come out and just do things out the water that it's like we haven't seen it all season yet. And Ford, I do like Ford, but I don't know who they're playing. Who? Cleveland. Raiders. I'd rather choose the pass catchers than Ford against the Raiders. You still got to go against Max Crosby, right? You still have a spill in there, but the secondary has been pretty good against Judy and Cooper. So I'd rather choose them over Ford this week.
Yeah, I think when it comes to these like flex decisions, basically, because that's what these kind of guys are. Shakir is living off like his expected volume sucks. It's like wide receiver 60. He's just playing above that because he's getting a lot of yak, and it's possible. I would rather go Thomas over him. Crosby's out this week too, but like I'm gonna go Jerome Ford when I go. It's the year of the running back, so my thought process is if I get running backs with volume versus wide receivers, I'm just gonna take the running back the majority of the time. Jerome Ford has had it 2 weeks out of 3. He 1 week he did not have volume last week. It kind of kicked back to him, so I'm confident enough to start Jerome Ford. But you can go Brian Thomas Jr. I like those two guys. Like Shakir is basically you're just riding the lightning until it disappears. I don't know when that's gonna happen. That's what worries me.
It's not gonna. I mean, we talk about how good Josh Allen is. I mean, it's just not gonna. That's his number one target, clearly. Brian Thomas, we're hoping that he becomes the number one target. I think we're a few weeks away. Jerome Ford, that offense sucks. They're terrible. I know Vegas sucks as well. Jerome Ford has the opportunity. That offensive line has been atrocious. I think they're a little banged up as well in Cleveland compared to their expectation. So it's Shakir for me.
Yeah, like I get it. Sure. Like it's just I'm terrified of Shakir because his expected volume as well. It's on the top 100. So like that's my whole thing. Like I usually will trust the volume of the other guys. But yeah, if you want to go with it, like Ford's expected is like 12 points per game. Thomas is like 9. Shakir's like 6. Like it's for betting on the efficiency. It's just like I personally like me as a manager, that's what I struggle with. But you just have to be okay with writing it if you're gonna do that. It's totally fine. Yeah, thanks for the question, Tanner DeAndre. If anybody else has any more sit start questions, we'll be answering them tomorrow. 9 o'clock my time, 12 o'clock Eastern time. That's when we do our sit start show. So we don't want to overload this one with it. So if you have them, you can post them in the stream, which we'll post tomorrow, and we'll happily answer them all day, talking about all the sit start matchups. Is there anything else you guys want to get to today?
Not be able to look at, man. Always check your waivers. I think a lot of players that are looking pretty good right now have came off waivers. You talk about Mason. So unless you're in a deep league and you stashed him, he was probably on the waiver. I talked about Trey Tucker earlier. He was on your waivers. Huntley might be a valuable starter if you're struggling at quarterback. So he was on your waiver, So this in fantasy football, you don't win at your drafts. You got to be active. You got to check your waivers. You got to make trades, and find the value. And sometimes, as you're talking about Nabers, sometimes it is good to capitalize on that value because maybe that's their peak value. And then we think Daniel Jones is bad. What if they get someone that's worse? We don't know until it happens, right? So it could just hurt him drastically as well. So sometimes you could. I mean, with the hype on him, go see if you can get Jets. Why not?
I mean, I don't think you can go wrong with either one of those guys, to tell the truth. I'd be happy with both of them on my team. Just give me all of them, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. And Esty, you're talking about waivers. Like right now, take a look at your waivers. The tight end position is garbage, but you might have Zach Ertz, Tyler Conklin, or Elijah Higgins available to you on waivers, all of whom I have ranked over Mark Andrews, Pat Freiermuth, Isaiah Likely, Cole Kmet, who for some reason is like a waiver darling, although he's got a good matchup this week. Yeah. But yeah, there's still guys there who can give you a couple usable weeks. I love Ertz and Conklin this week especially.
Yeah, you got to be careful. As Aaron always says, don't go to too much. That's how you end up with your ex-wife. So, you got to be careful sometimes. But I will say the waiver wire is a good way to play strategy. If you're in a matchup against a team that's struggling at quarterback, go pick up a Sam Darnold, go pick up a Justin Fields. Make it harder on them to start a worse player. So you can play defense week to week against matchups. Like if they're struggling on defense, they're struggling at kicker. Go burn a spot on your bench so they don't get that starting valuable like waiver wire pickup, right? Like you pick up Cam Akers so they can't start like – there's ways you can play defense week to week too. So don't be afraid to use a waiver wire. I think it's a really good kind of a short-term and long-term valuable goal for teams to use. Or like we talk about on the flip side, you could focus on the next week edition, right? If somebody that's coming back or that's injured, you pick them up, they come back. There's ways around it. I think it's really good. But I think that's going to wrap it up for this first edition of the Fantasy Football Roundtable in week 4. We'll be doing this each and every Saturday. All support is appreciated from you guys. So if you can make sure to like, comment, subscribe, share everything that you guys do, like we will happily push it back to you guys. So we just appreciate all the support. We're pushing our goal to 500 subscribers on YouTube. We're getting there. We're creeping. I think we're at like 460. Yeah. We got a few to go, but we're getting there. So we hope you guys enjoyed this ride with us. So for myself, the ghost of Aaron St. Denis, he's doing some work stuff. Jeremy Shulman and S.C. Romero. Thank you all for joining this week. And yeah, we'll see you tomorrow for our Sit Start Show week 4. So peace out, folks.